David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, has been telling the House of Commons about the UK's ongoing arms exports to Israel. Natasha Clark is LBC's political editor who's been listening across. Natasha, we've got a change in government policy here.
Tom, yes, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, has in the last few minutes announced in the House of Commons the partial suspension of arms export licences to Israel. Now, there's been obviously quite a lot of pressure on the government for some time to look into this and whether there is any possibility that any British-based or made weapons could be involved in breaking international law in the conflict between Israel and Gaza. And many international lawyers and experts had urged them to look into this. David Lammy, when he came into the Foreign Office, commissioned an urgent review of this. And today he has announced the suspension of 30 out of 350 of those export licences. Here's him telling MPs about this in the Commons in the last few minutes.
Facing a conflict such as this, it is this government's legal duty to review export licences. Criteria 2C of the Strategic Export Licensing Criteria states that the government will not issue export licences if there is a clear risk that the items might be used to commit or facilitate serious violations of international humanitarian law. It is with regret that I inform the House today the assessment I have received leaves me unable to conclude anything other than that for certain UK arms exports to Israel, there does exist a clear risk that they might be used to commit or facilitate a serious violation of international humanitarian law. I have informed my Right Honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, and he is therefore today announcing the suspension of around 30 from a total of approximately 350 to Israel as required under the Export Controls Act.
So we should be getting a little bit more detail from the government in the next few minutes about exactly why they've made this decision. But David Lammy telling MPs that there could be evidence that some of these weapons could be being used in Gaza and Israel in that conflict and potentially breaking international law. Now, he did tell MPs this afternoon that it was not the government's assessment. They have not looked into whether there has been a breach of international law, only that it exposes that possibility. He also spoke a little bit more about some of the weapons and potential military equipment that could be affected, including drones and helicopters. But look, this is a pretty controversial decision, Tom, and I'm sure there will be MPs on both sides of the political divide that will want to weigh in on this. But it's clearly quite a controversial and pretty big decision to take this action against what the UK would call as an international ally.
Natasha, thank you. Natasha Clark, LBC's political editor, with some of the details, the first details coming out of the House of Commons from the Foreign Secretary David Lammy. Much more on the situation in Israel tonight and in Gaza too, as those talks get underway or continue about the hostage deal. We'll bring you more details.